My son blocked my number while I was still hooked up to the heart monitor. 3 days post-surgery, staring at my phone trying to figure out how to get home. The nurse just told me I got 2 hours to find a ride from the hospital. My place is 40 miles out in Hilltop, the kind of neighborhood where you check your locks twice. I'm Harold Peterson, 58 years old. Never thought I'd end up here, alone in a hospital room after open-heart surgery, abandoned by my own blood like yesterday's garbage. Worked 37 years for the United States Postal Service, Local 78, NALC member, Columbus, Ohio. Rain, sleet, snow, heat that melted the rubber soles right off my boots. Walked those routes until my knees shot out and my back couldn't take another step. Retired at 55 with a FERS pension paying me $1,847 a month. After Medicare Part B and taxes, I clear about $1,600. My rent in Hilltop runs $850. You do the math on what's left for groceries and everything else. But I was proud as hell. Raised Vernon by myself after Dorothy got cancer when he was 8. Worked every overtime shift I could get back then. Ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so he could have real meals. Wore the same USPS jacket for 15 years because Vernon needed school clothes and sports equipment. Everything I had went to that boy. Every damn penny I could scrape together. I figured that's what fathers do. You sacrifice for your kid's future. Paid off too. Vernon got into Ohio State, then law school, landed at Henderson, Marks & Associates downtown. Big glass tower with valet parking, conference rooms bigger than my apartment. Married Beverly, calls herself a lifestyle consultant, which means she spends other people's money on junk nobody needs. They got a 4,000 square foot house in Upper Arlington. 3-car garage, more space than I ever dreamed of having. I bragged about him at the post office every chance I got back in the day. My boy Vernon's a lawyer now. I'd tell the other carriers. They'd roll their eyes, but I didn't care one bit about their jealousy or attitude. Sure, visits got rare as hen's teeth over the years. Phone calls got shorter and shorter. Christmas became a $50 gift card to some fancy restaurant downtown. Appetizers there cost more than my weekly grocery budget. But that's success, right? Kid moves up in the world, leaves the old neighborhood behind for better things. That's what I kept telling myself anyway. Even when the calls stopped coming altogether, even when he'd let my voicemails sit for weeks without returning them, then my ticker started acting up real bad. First, just tightness in my chest when I walked to the mailbox or climbed the stairs to my apartment. Figured it was stress from trying to figure out how to pay for the water heater that died, the roof leak, all the stuff that breaks down. When you're living on fumes financially, every little repair feels like a major crisis. Can't call a handyman when you're counting quarters for gas money. But one Tuesday morning, I collapsed, face down, in the parking lot, outside my building. Nancy Rodriguez from 2B found me unconscious on the asphalt and called 911. ER doc took one look at my EKG and went white as a sheet. Triple bypass surgery, he said, like he was announcing my death sentence already. Within a week, or you're looking at a massive coronary, probably fatal this time. Surgery alone was going to cost $187,000 before any additional complications or extended stay. Medicare covers 80% after deductibles, but that still leaves me $30,000 in the hole. Plus, I'd need help at home for 2 weeks, minimum post-surgery. Someone to change bandages I couldn't reach, manage all the pills, watch for signs of infection or complications. Someone to make sure I didn't die alone. I called Vernon first thing. Took him 6 hours to call back, which should have been my first warning sign about what was coming next. When he did call back, I could hear party noise in the background. Music, people laughing and talking, the clink of expensive glasses and silverware. Dad, "This is really bad timing," he said, voice raised over the noise. "Beverly and I are at the Columbus Heartball fundraiser downtown. Can this wait until tomorrow?" "Vernon, I'm in the hospital," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "They say I need emergency heart surgery, or I'm going to die within the week." The background noise went completely quiet. Must have stepped outside the ballroom or into a quieter hallway somewhere. Took him long enough to respond that I wondered if he'd hung up. "Surgery? When exactly?" His voice sounded different now, distant and careful, like he was already calculating the inconvenience this would cause him and his perfect life. "Friday morning at 7 a.m. Vernon, I'm scared out of my mind here. I really need you to be here with me for this." Another long pause that stretched out forever. Real long, the kind that tells you everything you need to know about where you stand with somebody. "Friday. Dad, I've got the Kellerman deposition Friday morning. Been on the books for 4 months. Billable hours are through the roof on this case. I can't just cancel." "Son, please. I might not make it through this surgery. The doctor said there's real risk involved here." My voice cracked a little saying it out loud. "Dad, you're tough as nails. You raised me by yourself, didn't you? Look, I'll try to swing by over the weekend after surgery. Does that work?" He didn't swing by that weekend. Didn't call either. Sent a text Friday morning while they were wheeling me into surgery. "Good luck, Dad. You got this." That was it. No phone call, no visit, nothing else. Just those 6 words, like I was some casual acquaintance instead of the father who raised him. Surgery was hell on earth. They cracked my rib cage open with a bone saw, stopped my heart completely, hooked me up to machines that kept me alive, rerouted my blood vessels like I was some kind of car engine getting rebuilt from scratch. When I came to hours later, felt like getting hit by trucks. Pain everywhere. Chest, back, arms, places I didn't even know could hurt that bad. But worse than the physical pain was that empty chair next to my bed. 3 other guys in cardiac recovery, all with families hovering around like protective angels, wives holding their hands, kids bringing flowers, grandkids showing off crayon drawings. My side of the room? Just me and a heart monitor beeping steadily next to a window that looked out over the employee parking garage below. 3rd day post-surgery, head nurse Patricia Miller came in with my discharge papers. Pat's one of those old-school nurses who's seen absolutely everything and doesn't sugarcoat anything. "Mr. Peterson, you're going home this afternoon. Hospital policy requires a comprehensive care plan. Who's picking you up? And what's your home situation like exactly?" "I'll work something out somehow," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt about my prospects of getting home safely without help. She looked at me over her reading glasses like I was completely nuts. "You just had triple bypass surgery. Can't drive for 6 weeks, minimum, safely. Can't lift anything over 5 pounds. Can't climb stairs without assistance. We don't discharge post-surgical patients without proper care arrangements in place for recovery." "I'll take a cab then. My place is ground floor apartment." I was grasping at straws, and we both knew it wasn't going to work. "Family members? Close friends? Anyone at all?" She was getting impatient with me, but trying to stay professional about the whole impossible situation I'd created. I thought about lying to her, making up some story about someone coming to help. But what's the point? My son. But he's busy with work. Pat had heard that particular song before. I could tell from the look that crossed her face. "Let me make some calls. Give me an hour." I laid there, feeling like a complete failure as a human being. 58 years old, 37 years, carrying mail through every kind of weather. And I couldn't arrange transportation. Always been self-reliant my whole life. That's the postal way we live by. You handle your route. You handle your problems. You don't ask for handouts. Now I'm helpless as a newborn baby, completely dependent on strangers for basic survival. Never felt so alone and abandoned in my entire life. before this moment. That's when Dr. Eugene Foster walked into my room. Met him briefly before surgery. Tall guy, late 60s, silver hair, commanding presence that made you straighten up. Usually had medical students trailing behind him like ducklings following their mother. But today he was completely alone for some reason I couldn't figure out yet. Mr. Peterson, how you holding up after everything? His voice was calm and professional, but I could hear genuine concern underneath the doctor routine he maintained. Like somebody took a crowbar to my chest and rearranged everything inside. I wasn't in the mood for polite conversation about my condition at that point. He almost smiled at my honesty. That's about accurate. Used some serious hardware getting in there, but put everything back together real nice and strong. He picked up my chart, scanned it carefully for several minutes, then set it down. Patricia says you're having trouble arranging transportation home from here. I'll figure something out eventually, I said, though we both knew I was lying through my teeth about having any real plan for getting home. She also mentioned you live alone, 40 miles out. Absolutely no family support system. He was stating facts, not asking questions about my pathetic personal situation. Said I'll figure it out somehow. I was getting defensive about my obvious lack of options, but couldn't help myself from snapping at him a little. Dr. Foster went quiet for a full minute, just studying my face. Had this way of looking straight through whatever story you were trying to sell yourself. Mr. Peterson, gonna be completely straight with you about your situation. You absolutely cannot go home alone right now. Not for several weeks at minimum. Need someone checking your incision daily, managing medications properly, making sure you eat right, watching carefully for any signs of infection or serious complications developing. Without proper care, there's a very good chance you end up back here within days, or worse, you could die at home alone. What you suggesting then? Can't afford some fancy private nursing home. My pension barely covers rent and basic groceries as it is right now. He leaned back in his chair, choosing his words very carefully. Got a suggestion for you. Not conventional at all, but hear me out completely. I got a large house with more space than I know what to do with since my wife Sharon passed away 5 years ago from cancer. Also got a full-time nurse on staff for my own health issues. What if you stayed with me for 2 weeks? Just until you're stable enough. I stared at him like he'd lost his mind completely. Come again? You're offering what exactly? This had to be some kind of medical school charity case. Your own room, proper medical care around the clock, meals, everything you need to recover safely. He was dead serious about this completely unexpected offer from nowhere. Dr. Foster, I can't accept something like that. Why would you even make an offer like this to a complete stranger? This didn't make any sense. He got up from his chair, walked slowly to the window, hands buried deep in his white coat pockets, like he was thinking hard. Let me ask you something specific. Do you remember working the Riverside postal route about 3-5 years ago? Confused by the sudden change of subject. Worked that route almost 10 years total. Why are you asking about that? I couldn't figure out where this conversation was heading at all. Building on Maple Street. 4 stories, red brick construction. You remember it clearly? He was still facing the window, not looking at me directly yet. Sure thing. 447 Maple Street. What about it exactly? I was getting more confused by the minute about where this was going with my old route. He turned around slowly to face me directly. January 1989. Coldest winter in 20 years. Medical student living on the 3rd floor, poor as dirt. Working nights at Speedway gas station to pay tuition. One day found an envelope in his mailbox. No return address at all. $500 cash inside. And a handwritten note that said, "Keep going. Someone believes in you." That envelope changed everything. For a struggling young man about to quit, my chest tightened up, and it wasn't from the surgery this time. I'd completely forgotten about that. Did it maybe 6 times over the years? When I saw someone really struggling, really desperate, I'd scrape together what I could and leave it in their mailbox. Never wanted credit or recognition. Never told a soul about it either. Just scraped together what I could spare and dropped it off quietly. Figured that's what decent people do. I was that medical student, Mr. Peterson. That $500 bought my anatomy textbooks and kept me fed for a month. More than that, though, much more, came at the exact moment when I was ready to quit medical school completely. Exhausted, broke, starting to think it was the biggest mistake ever. That money, that note, it kept me going when I had nothing left. Gave me hope when I was ready to throw everything away. Hell, I'd forgotten about most of them over the years. Just seemed like the right thing to do when you saw somebody really hurting bad. I never forgot that kindness, Dr. Foster continued. Didn't know who sent it until 2 weeks ago reviewing your file before surgery. Saw your name, Harold Peterson, postal carrier, Riverside route. Went through my old journals from medical school and confirmed it. Same name, same exact building address. You didn't need to remember something like that after all these years, I said quietly. Most people would have forgotten completely by now, moved on. But I did remember, and I'm glad. When Patricia told me you had nobody, nowhere safe to go, I saw a chance here. Chance to pay back a 5-year-old debt that changed my entire life trajectory. One act of kindness that made my whole career possible. Wasn't a debt, though. I didn't do it expecting payback someday. It just seemed like the right thing to do for someone struggling hard. I know that. But I'm offering anyway. 2 weeks of recovery time. Let me help you get back on your feet properly. One good turn. Pride's a hell of a thing, especially for working men like me. Even when you're desperate, it makes you want to refuse help from anyone. But I was bone tired, scared, and completely out of options. Thought of struggling alone in my apartment, trying to change bandages I couldn't reach, climbing stairs that might kill me, managing medications I might mess up. It scared me more than admitting I needed help from a stranger. All right then, I said quietly. Thank you for the generous offer. I really appreciate it more than you know. It was hard swallowing my pride. Good decision. I'll make all the arrangements. We'll move you this afternoon. And, Mr. Peterson? He paused at the door, looking back at me. Yeah? I was already feeling better about the whole situation, like maybe things would work out after all, despite Vernon abandoning me completely. Call me Gene from now on. We're past the formal doctor-patient stuff at this point. He smiled genuinely for the first time since entering my room. That afternoon, Gene's driver Leonard Barnes picked me up in a Mercedes worth more than I made in 5 years of postal work combined. 20-minute drive through neighborhoods I'd only seen delivering mail to rich folks. Tree-lined streets, houses set back behind expensive iron gates, circular driveways. Gene's place wasn't just big. It was a damn mansion. 3 stories, stone and brick construction, gardens that probably cost more to maintain annually than my entire pension income. Leonard helped me inside, where Nurse Barbara Wilson was waiting professionally, but warmly to greet me and show me around. Dr. Foster thought you'd be more comfortable on the first floor, Barbara explained, showing me to a guest room bigger than my whole apartment. No stairs to worry about. Private bathroom, right through that door. I'm just down the hall if you need anything at all, day or night. I'll be checking on you 3 times daily, managing your medications on schedule. The room had a damn fireplace. Fireplace in a guest bedroom of all things. Reading chair by the big window. Flat screen TV. Bed that looked like something from a 5-star hotel downtown. I'd never seen luxury like this. Gene appeared in the doorway, Everything okay so far? Room comfortable enough for you? He seemed genuinely concerned about my comfort and well-being here. This is way too much, I said, looking around at all the expensive furnishings. I can't accept all this. It's not right somehow. It's a room I'm not using anyway. Consider it yours for 2 weeks. Rest now. Dinner's at 6. Barbara will get you. Or bring it here if you're too tired. He was treating me like family instead of some charity case, which made it easier. First night, couldn't sleep worth a damn. Partly from the surgical pain, partly because I was in a stranger's house, even with good reasons. Mostly kept thinking about Vernon, though. My boy. Raised him alone after Dorothy died. Worked my tail off so he could have better opportunities. And when I needed him most, he blocked my number, like I was some annoying telemarketer, instead of his father, who sacrificed everything for him. Around midnight, heard footsteps in the hallway outside my room. Then a soft knock on the door. "Come in," I called out quietly. Jean walked in wearing a bathrobe and reading glasses. "Saw your light on. Can't sleep? Pain not too bad, I hope?" Genuine concern in his voice. "Just thinking about things," I said. Didn't want to burden him with my family problems on top of everything else he was doing. He sat in the reading chair next to the window. "About your son?" He was perceptive. Could read people well after years of medical practice. "How'd you guess that?" I asked, though it was pretty obvious what was keeping me awake and troubled at this late hour of night. "Patricia mentioned it earlier. I'm sorry about that situation. Know that particular kind of pain myself, from personal experience." His voice was understanding, not judgmental. "Don't get it at all. Gave him everything I had. Worked double shifts, went without so he could have what he needed for success. Now when I need him most, he's just completely gone. Like I never existed, like I never mattered to him at all." It hurt saying it. Jean was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Can I tell you something about 30 years as a cardiac surgeon? Something important? Patients who recover best aren't always the ones with most money or best insurance coverage. They're the ones with people who actually show up, who sit by the bed, ask questions, give a damn about what happens. Body heals much better when the heart isn't broken emotionally." "My heart's literally broken," I said, trying to make a joke out of the whole mess, though it wasn't really funny to either of us. Fix the physical part of that. Other kind of heartbreak takes much longer to heal properly. Sometimes people who should love us aren't capable. Not because we failed them as parents, but because they lost something essential along the way. Something that makes them human and caring. We talked until almost 2 a.m. about everything. His career, his wife, Sharon, who died of cancer 5 years back, my struggles raising Vernon alone. Next 2 weeks were strange but healing. Barbara checked on me like clockwork. Medications, wound care, making sure I ate properly and rested. Leonard drove me to follow-up appointments with Jean. Cook Carol Anderson made real food, not the frozen junk I'd been living on for years. More than medical care, though, there was genuine companionship. Jean stopped by every evening after work, just to talk about everything and nothing at all. Sports, politics, stupid TV shows, our regrets, and hopes for the future. He introduced me to his friends when they visited the house. Other doctors, retired colleagues, people who treated me like I belonged there, instead of some charity case taking up space in their social circle. First time in years, I didn't feel invisible. Felt valued and respected, like my presence actually mattered to people, instead of being a burden. 10 days into my stay, Vernon finally called. Barbara knocked on my door during lunch. "Mr. Peterson, your son's on the phone," she said quietly. My hands shook, taking the phone from her. "Vernon?" I said, not sure what to expect from this first conversation since he'd abandoned me. "Hey, Dad." His voice was too casual, too cheerful for someone who'd ignored his father's heart surgery. Sorry I haven't checked in. Work's been absolutely insane. How you feeling now? Like nothing had happened. Like blocking my number after surgery was perfectly normal behavior for a son to display toward his father. I'm recovering from major heart surgery, Vernon. Where the hell have you been for the past 10 days? I couldn't hide my anger anymore. Told you. Work's been crazy. Look, Beverly and I want to come visit, see how you're doing. Maybe this Sunday afternoon works? Something in his tone felt completely wrong. He'd never wanted to visit before, especially not with Beverly tagging along. For some unknown reason, I couldn't figure out. How'd you get this number exactly? I asked, suspicious about his sudden interest in my welfare after complete silence for weeks of recovery time. Called the hospital. They transferred me to wherever you're staying. Dad, where are you exactly? Why aren't you home in your apartment recovering? I hesitated before answering. Staying with a friend during recovery. I didn't want to give him too much information about my current living situation yet. What friend? You don't have friends with. He caught himself before finishing that sentence, but I heard exactly what he meant to say. A friend who actually showed up when I needed help, I said pointedly. Unlike certain people who were too busy for their father's surgery. Long pause on his end. Dad, don't be dramatic about this. I was busy with important work. You're fine now, right? So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? My son was asking, what's the big deal about abandoning his father after life-threatening surgery? I couldn't believe his attitude. 4782 Lakeshore Drive, I said quietly. Sunday at 2 p.m. I wanted to see what his real agenda was for this sudden visit request. Lakeshore Drive? Dad, whose house are you staying at exactly? Now he sounded very interested. More interested than he'd been about my health or surgery. See you Sunday, Vernon. I hung up before he could ask more questions. My hands were shaking again, but from anger this time. Jean appeared in the doorway moments later. Must have heard my end of the conversation and could tell I was upset about something important. Your son? He asked, sitting down in the chair next to my bed. His presence was calming even when I was worked up. I nodded. Wants to visit Sunday. First time he's bothered to check on me since the surgery. Suddenly, very interested in where I'm staying. Jean sat down, looking thoughtful. Let me guess. He suddenly became available when he found out the address where you're recovering from surgery? How'd you know that? I asked. Though I was starting to suspect Jean understood people like Vernon better than I wanted to admit. Because I've seen it before with families. People disappear during the real crisis, then show up when they think there's something to gain from it. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Harold, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like hearing it at all. My stomach dropped like a stone. What now? I was afraid to hear what he'd discovered about my son and his sudden interest. I had my attorney do some checking on your son's situation. Vernon's in serious financial trouble. Very serious trouble. That's getting worse daily. His firm's been losing major clients. He took out a second mortgage on that big house to maintain appearances. His wife's spending is completely out of control. They're leveraged to the breaking point financially. One missed payment could collapse everything they've built up over the years. This was devastating news to hear. Why would you investigate my son? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer and didn't like it one bit. Because I wanted to know who had abandoned my friend when he needed help most. Harold, I think your son's coming Sunday for a reason. Because somebody told him you're staying at the home of Dr. Eugene Foster, chief of cardiology, one of the wealthiest doctors in Columbus. Hit me like a punch to the gut. You think he's after money from you? The thought made me sick to my stomach. I think he's desperate. And desperate people make calculated moves. I hope I'm wrong about this, but I've arranged for my attorney to be present, just in case I'm right about his motives. If I'm wrong, he stays out of sight. If I'm right about this, Jean shrugged. Sunday came too quickly. Part of me wanted to believe Vernon was genuinely concerned, that he'd rushed over as soon as he could manage it, that he was still the kid who hugged me tight when he graduated high school, proud of everything we'd accomplished together against the odds. Life's funny that way. Smallest kindnesses echo across decades, changing lives in ways you never imagine. People you save might save you back when you need it most. Sometimes strangers become family while blood relatives become strangers. Real family gets built from daily choices, not DNA. Every morning we choose who matters, who gets our time.